Hello everyone, Storm 101 here. Today we'll be taking a look into possibility for some flooding that could happen across portions of the Tennessee Valley, the Lower Hall Valley, back it down into around the Lower Mississippi Valley as well. We'll be taking a look to some models, and there will also be the chance for some severe weather for some of these same areas as well. So we'll be taking a look into that. But let's first take a look into the watch warning map here, and you can see here where I have circled here in these dark green boxes. These are flood watches that are currently in effect. So pretty much for most of Kentucky, you've got southern Illinois, southeastern Missouri, eastern Arkansas, northern Mississippi, most of West Virginia, and into a few counties across western Virginia. You also got a couple counties across southwestern Pennsylvania as well. And some of these areas have the chance for some flooding issues, and also for southwestern Indiana as well. Meanwhile, up across portions of the plains, northern plains and upper Midwest, well, not the upper Midwest, but the Midwest, we have winter weather advisories. Some places could see a few inches of snow up there, and you got portions of Arizona, New Mexico, the Panhandle of Texas, and Oklahoma, and southwestern Kansas got red flag warnings. It looks like we have some wind advisories and a few high wind warnings. Excuse me, across western Arizona, a few areas in central and southern California, and also a couple of counties across Nevada as well. Other than that, it's a little bit quiet across the United States as well, and also winter weather advisories across northern Maine there as well. So let's talk about this. And the main topic is going to be with the flooding threat and also further chance for some severe weather. So let's take a look into the HER model here. And as you can see here, you got some pretty good thunderstorm activity really from most of Kentucky all the way back into southern Missouri here. And some of these could put that rain in a hurry. We got quite a bit of moisture to work with. You got pretty good dew points and temperature, so these thunderstorms will be pretty good heavy rain producers. You can see here how some of these areas there just get slammed by multiple rounds of showers and thunderstorms there. And some of these could be on the strong side here as well, and we're going to have to pay attention to that. And then as we kind of get into Sunday evening here, this is where your seems like the better chance for severe weather will come in. Looks like we'll have a cold front back here. You got thunderstorms going on across northern Arkansas, and this will be moving to the southeast and east. You got some scattered showers and thunderstorms across northern Tennessee and to portions of Kentucky. We may have to watch those. Could be some, maybe the possibility for a supercell in there. We got quite a bit of wind shear to work with. The dynamics are there to support at least a marginal tornado risk across some of those areas there. And as we move really into Sunday evening, eventually get into the Sunday night, you can see here we got a pretty decent squall line and thunderstorms starting to move into western Tennessee. And you'll start to see this cold front start to come in here, and it could bring some winds down to the surface. When it starts to interact with some of these thunderstorms here, then you really start to see a squall line really expand here over the next several hours. And then you can see here as the cold front catches up, you can also see here you got a pretty good line of thunderstorms here, and some of these could produce some strong winds at the surface and maybe a brief spin up somewhere along that line there as well. And then it moves off down across the south. And let's take a look at the highest NAM, and you can see here it brings the majority of thunderstorms much further to the north, to say the least here. Uh, you can see here with the difference between the HER model actually had more of the cluster thunderstorms a little bit more focused around here. It's actually this time it's actually a little bit further north here, which that means your pretty good warm sector is going to be much further to the north. If that occurs here, your severe weather threat will expand to the north here, more across central Kentucky, back down across southwestern Kentucky, maybe back down into Arkansas, and maybe into northeastern Texas there as well. And as we continue on here, you got a pretty decent squall line going on here, which may produce some strong surface winds as well. One of these storms could be on the severe side, and that's what we gotta watch for there as well, which we'll take a look into it a little bit more further detail a little bit towards the end of the video. But the biggest concern is going to be the rainfall. And if we look into the HER model with the rainfall totals for the next 48 hours, so this is pretty much for the entire event. And as you can see here, you got a pretty widespread 2+ inches of rain. Let me actually get a different color here. So you got a pretty widespread, I mean, areas in the red, that's where you get 2+ inches of rain. You can see here, it's pretty widespread. Most of Kentucky's involved, portions of Illinois and Missouri back down across central Arkansas could be dealing with a lot of rain, and even up into portions of West Virginia. Got another area to watch here for a lot of rainfall across eastern Texas, northern Louisiana, into Mississippi as well. Could experience a lot of rain. And my biggest concern area right now is going to be, let me get a different color for this one, is really going to be across southern Kentucky, maybe portions of southeastern Kentucky, back down to northern Tennessee. Why is that? Well, if we look into the first round of what happened last night, this is the Kentucky Mesonet site, uh, Kentucky Mesonet webpage here, and you can see here, look at some of these Mesonet sites, look how much rain they picked up just from last night. You got some areas that has picked up close to 3 inches of rain. And across those areas, we've seen pictures of some major flooding going on across those regions. And we add on top to another 3, maybe 4 inches of rain, that's going to be a big concern. That's when we pretty much get to the point where we start to call this a major flooding problem. So there's a chance we could see major flooding issues across southern Kentucky, even across southeastern Kentucky, experiencing some flooding problems. And it does not take a whole lot of rain in some of these areas here to get flooding problems. It really doesn't. And even back down across portions of northern Tennessee, we'll also have the chance to see some major flooding problems. And when we look into the HER model, look at some of these rainfall totals. And you can see here, it's got some areas picking up 5 inches. Now, I think that's just going to be overdone. However, if we look into the last event, every single model, if mainly across, on the last event, we had a pretty good rainfall event across northeastern Arkansas, southeastern Missouri, northwestern Tennessee, and to southwestern Kentucky. Every model was underdone. They were off by at least 1 inch of rain across these regions here, and that's something we gotta pay attention to. And I think the HER model is probably the most accurate out of some of the other ones for rainfall amount wise, just because of how much moisture we got going on across portions of the atmosphere, and also your dew points are pretty decently high. So these thunderstorms will put down a lot of rain in a hurry, and that's where you get your flash flooding problems to really come in. And if we look into the high-res NAM here, and I've seen them increase the rainfall totals. Oh, that's the wrong thing here. Whoops. Um, there we go. And I've seen some of these models here bringing up some of the rainfall totals. While that loads, let's take a look to some of the other models I have already here. So, this is the NAM here, and you can see here it's got some places could be picking up 3 inches rain. So it's now starting to get the better idea here. We used to be before was just 1 to 2 inches, and now we're starting to see rainfall amounts over 3 inches across portions of Kentucky to southern Ohio, into portions of West Virginia, even down across portions of Tennessee there as well. And you can see here what the next round could be coming in after all this. So there could be more rain coming after this event towards midweek there as well. This is a rapid refresh. This is a pretty recent run. You can see here it's starting to bring up some of those rainfall totals. And it's got some areas picking up over 3.5 inches of rain. Good news is, if the rapid refresh is correct, the areas that got hit hard last night may not get as much rain as what some of the other models are thinking. I mean, this model's thinking about 1.5 inches. You got some areas that show 4 or 5 inches. If they get 4 or 5 inches of rain, there's going to be significant flooding problems down there, and that's something we do not want then across some of those regions there as well. But it's not going to take a whole lot of rain to cause flooding problems because earlier this week we had all this snow and ice on the ground and stuff like that, and we have very mild days, and all that stuff melted pretty quickly. It melted so quick, we actually had some minor problems in my county. So the ground is pretty saturated. It's actually a little bit muddy. So it's not going to take a whole lot of rain to cause flooding problems across some of these regions here. Not only for Kentucky, but even for portions of Tennessee, really just areas that experience some ice and snow on the ground that's melted. Those would be the areas that could experience some big time flooding problems. And look into the high res NAM with this, and you can see here most of the heaviest of the rain is further north, and that seems like what the most of the models are showing here, which may bring the warm sector a little bit further north than what her model shows. Actually has a little further south some of those clustered thunderstorms. So really areas across northern Kentucky, central Kentucky, southern Ohio, into northern West Virginia, even across some of these areas here as well. I mean, southern Kentucky, you guys could still see 1 to 2 inches, which is still a lot of rain. You guys don't need any more rain there as well. So generally areas to watch for flooding, generally speaking, will probably have to be these regions here, and probably the better chance of flooding will probably be the areas that will have some of the highest rainfall totals, which maybe could be somewhere right in here, maybe more like that. But we're going to see what's going to happen here. I mean, a lot of rain could be coming across some of those regions. So this is the National Weather Service forecast here from all the National Weather Service offices. They do predict most of your rain could be mostly across most of Kentucky into West Virginia, southern Indiana, back down into across western and northern Tennessee, and where some of these regions already had a lot of rain, could see another 3 inches or maybe a little bit more, and that's not a good thing at all. So this is definitely something we gotta watch for pretty closely here. And be for areas that even could get over 3 inches that missed the first round across regions across southern Kentucky, northern Tennessee, southeastern Kentucky. I mean, for areas across northern Kentucky, if you guys see over 3 inches of rain, which seems like a pretty decent bet right now, you guys could see some big time flooding problems up there as well. So this is something we gotta pay attention to pretty closely here. And here's the Weather Prediction Center has most of the rainfall really across central Kentucky here for the most part, with some areas picking up 2.5 to 3 inches, even including portions of West Virginia there as well. Could see some most of the rainfall for the next 48 hours. So this is the Weather Prediction Center's excessive rainfall outlook. So for this is tonight, and they show some of them with the better chance for seeing some excessive rainfall. I usually call it like the flooding chances, really. You could kind of put it that way too, but areas in yellow here, that's where we have a slight risk issue there, and in areas in the green, that's where we have a marginal risk at place for a chance for some excessive rainfall. If you look at today too, it's a much larger area. Your area is from northwestern Louisiana into southern Arkansas, northern Mississippi, northwestern Alabama, central and west central Tennessee, southern, southeastern, central Kentucky, western West Virginia, and even up into most of West Virginia into western Maryland. It's where we have a slight risk. And these areas here have the better chance right now to see some flooding issues. And especially this area in here. I mean, that'd be an area to watch pretty closely here. And if I were them, probably after what happened last night, probably put a moderate risk somewhere right in there because it ain't gonna take much rain to get flooding problems. So let's move on to the severe weather side of things. So this is the Storm Prediction Center outlook here. So for this is the rest of the night. And you can see here, you got a marginal risk for eastern Oklahoma, northern Arkansas, northwestern Tennessee, western Kentucky, far southwestern Indiana, southern Illinois as well. Includes places like Evansville, Tennessee. Looks like it's updating there real quick. So it includes places like Evansville, Clarksville, Tennessee, Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, Fort Smith, and Fayetteville, Arkansas as well. And here's the primary threats. So tornado threat is non-existent, but there could be some wind and there can also be some hail as well. And the hail is not really expected to be that large. But tomorrow's starting to catch my attention here. We got a marginal risk for severe weather from central Texas into northeastern Texas, far southeastern Oklahoma, northern Louisiana, the southern half of Arkansas, northern Mississippi, northwestern Alabama, central western Tennessee, eventually getting into most of Kentucky, and even for a few counties across western West Virginia as well. The tornado threat is there. We got quite a bit of wind shear to work with. However, it is a low cape environment for some of these areas. Damaging winds is there. The hail threat should stay back into the severed plains as well. But most of the threats is on the table, and the main area to watch here will be areas of the tornado risk and the wind risk as well. So let's take a look into some of these models here. So we'll look into the HER model. Go to the severe weather side of things. So we'll start off with the mixed layer cape. So this is how much instability there could be out there. And this will probably be the best tool to use here. And my internet's been bad for the past couple days, so apologize if this goes pretty slow. So for really later tonight, there will definitely be some mixed layer cape, and it ain't gonna take much mixed layer cape. I'll say over 500, you do have a better severe weather threat, but even like 100, maybe 200, it'll probably stay limited, but the severe weather threat could still be there across all those regions there. I mean, it ain't gonna take a whole lot of cape this time of year to have severe weather issues. You can see here with your mixed layer cape, got a decent amount of cape going on across southeastern Missouri, back down to central Arkansas, most of Louisiana, and northern Mississippi. But the area to watch here for this, now this is getting into tomorrow evening. The area to watch will be generally this region right in here where we have high wind shear and your storm relative helicity numbers are also quite high as well. You can see here your severe weather front may be as far north as across portions of central Kentucky, back down across central and western Tennessee, northern Mississippi, southern Arkansas, northern Louisiana, back down into eastern Texas, which this is the same model that shows a pretty good squall line earlier. So let's get a sounding out in western Tennessee. The hodograph isn't good here, but you still got a decent amount of wind shear to work with. And there's also a decent amount of cape. Also, your dew points are kind of getting close to the upper 60s as well. If we go a little further north into western Kentucky, where we have higher wind shear to work with, you can see here, not a good sounding either. Hodograph is actually pretty garbage with this sounding here. Yeah, that's the mixed layer cape right there. And we'll get one more in northern Mississippi using the HER model. And the hodograph is actually better. More cape to work with, upper 60s with temperatures and dew points. Not as much for wind shear, but it's a pretty good sound. And critical angle numbers also high with 43 there as well. Let's take a look at those lap rates here, and this kind of gives you an indication with those updrafts. So this helps us show if there could be a hail threat with this. So we're gonna wait for this to load for a little bit here. You can see here as you kind of get into Sunday evening here, there could be the chance for some pretty pretty decent updrafts. I mean, really, you have to be above 7 there to have some pretty good updrafts. But you can see here pretty decent updrafts across southwestern Kentucky, northwestern Tennessee, back there across most of Arkansas, and you got some pretty good numbers across Texas, and those areas have the better chance to see some hail if you get a number above a 7. But overall, pretty decent lap rates, especially across kind of around the Severn Plains area, which will get a sounding down there. You can see here you actually got a pretty good hodograph there as well. Some dry air going on in the mid-level, so that could cause a little bit of trouble for some thunderstorm development. And we'll see if there's anything else if we want to look at. Oh yeah, let's actually take a look to the bulk shear. So this is kind of pretty much your wind shear here. And this is kind of like your low-level wind shear, pretty much. If I'm correct on that. So we're gonna let this load here for a little bit, and you can see here when we get to late tonight, you actually got strong low-level wind shear here across northern Arkansas. Numbers getting as high as 55 knots there. Some pretty decent, pretty good low-level wind shear there. And then as you kind of get into Sunday evening, then you got pretty good low-level wind shear across most of Tennessee into southeastern Kentucky. And you see how it decreases as you kind of get further south with time there as well. So most of your wind shear with this type of setup will probably mainly be for portions of Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, maybe into northern Mississippi as well. That's probably where some of your highest wind shear environment is going to be with this setup here. We'll also take a look to the storm relative helicity here. This will be the last thing we'll take a look at because I don't want to make this video way too long for you guys. Especially with this slow internet, which is pretty annoying. So some of these numbers are likely going to be pretty high here. And that's how they kind of are a good chunk of the time. You can see here pretty high numbers as you kind of get up into Kentucky, kind of back this up here. There's your early morning thread, and you got some pretty high numbers across Arkansas and Missouri. Even up here too, but that's just away from the severe weather zone. Even getting up into portions of Kentucky here, especially Sunday evening here. Let's get a sounding right there to see what it looks like. Right up in there. You can see here, no cape to work with there, but even if you even got a high wind shear environment through there as well. So no cape really to work with up there. But again, I think the HER models could be a little bit too far south with this, at least for the warm sector part. I think it's going to be further north like most of the other models are showing. Like this high-risk NAM here. So let's take a look to the high-risk NAM with this. So let's take a look to the mixed layer cape here. We probably won't look into everything like the HER model because this video is just taking longer than expected. You can see here, it doesn't show us much mixed layer cape to work with here, but you can see here with that slivers, with our up to the north, let's get a sounding up across portions of Kentucky. And big difference than what the HER has it. You can see here, you actually got a pretty good hodograph there. A little bit dry air mid-level, but that should not be too big of a deal. Got pretty good cape numbers. Your equinox of how high some of these thunderstorms could be is way up there. So you got a pretty decent severe weather threat up there. We'll go back down into I forgot where that area was. Photograph is actually pretty much garbage there. You also got some dry air going on in the mid levels there as well, so that could cause some trouble. So that's a big difference here than what the HERM model is showing. So there's some uncertainties here. We're just gonna see what's gonna happen here, just to be honest here. And we'll take a look to the bulk shear as well. And we'll lastly take a look to the storm relative helicity. And this is actually loading faster than her. Okay, I probably said that too soon. But really going back to the video, well, early in the video, I show you guys the reflectivity on both the models. The HER model actually show a pretty large squall line, uh, more across southwestern Kentucky, western Tennessee, most of Arkansas, back down into Texas and Louisiana, Mississippi. The higher dams actually show a pretty good squall line up more focused across Kentucky and eventually expands into most of the Tennessee Valley back down to, I think it showed it all the way back down to northern Louisiana, if I remember that correctly. You can see here, it does not show as much bulk shear to work with either. You can see some of these thunderstorms going off here, so if we get a sounding nearby some of these thunderstorms, this will give us a pretty good idea of how the environment could be like. And this is in western Tennessee. Pretty good hodograph, decent cape numbers. He also had pretty good amount of wind shear to work with as well. So that's a pretty good sounding there as well. And also those 850 millbar winds, which is what we call wind energy. There's a good amount of it up there. The last time I checked, it had 850 millbar winds as high as 65 knots, which would be supportive for some severe thunderstorm winds at the surface. So that's going to be something we're going to watch here. We'll pick one more across southern Kentucky, and that's not in a good spot. But overall, pretty decent severe weather setup. We just do not know really what the location is going to be. We're just going to see what really happens tomorrow, and that'll really determine of how the outlook could be like for some of these areas here. So some uncertainties with the severe weather setup, but it's just something to watch for now since we do have some uncertainties as of right now. But anyways, guys, this is all for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys like this video, hit the like button. If you do like my channel, hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell notification so you never miss an upload. If you guys have questions about this, you can put a comment section down below. I'll answer you guys questions. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.